If you could, how would you fix the Highlander franchise? Hello out there, folks. This is the first installment of what we're tentatively calling Franchise Fixes, where we discuss what we would do to fix franchises if somehow we had the money and power to do so. Some of these are probably going to be longer and more elaborate than others. For instance, if we ever get around to Star Wars, I expect it to be like a multi-part series.
Long episodes each.
Yes. And not just the sequels, even though they are a complete dumpster fire. But no, today we're going to start with the Highlander series, which, for those of you who are unaware, it is a series that has 5 live-action movies, an anime movie, a TV series that ran for, I believe, 6 or 7 seasons, and a spin-off TV series that ran for roughly 1 season, and an animated show for kids, which is amazing because the main plot is people trying to decapitate each other. And the cartoon got kind of creative in ways to avoid that. But we're not going to focus on the cartoon and the anime because they're kind of extraneous to everything else. The main focus would be the material from the movies and the TV show, because that's what people are most familiar with and it's the easiest thing to reference. So, as I mentioned, the main plot is that several of the characters in the series are immortal unless they lose their head, literally. At which point, if another immortal was the one who removed it, they gain their power and knowledge.
There can be only one.
Yes, there can be only one, because the first movie lays out the concept of this idea of the gathering. When there's only a handful of them left, they'll be drawn to one location to fight it out for the ultimate prize, which they believe is ultimate power, but none of them actually know what it is, because, who wrote the rules? None of them know.
Some things are just better left to the imagination.
Yeah. So the first movie, just in brief, I'm going to go through the first 4 movies. The 5th one is absolute trash. Don't watch it. Seriously, it is god-awful. And that's saying something, because the second one is not considered to exactly be a gem itself, but it is better.
I really like the first one.
The first one's good. The first one, its major problem... Well, I'll get to that, because that's also the fix. So the first one has a number of characters who are, like I said, immortals, and they meet up in New York in the 80s to fight it out for the ultimate prize. And
there is some flashback scenes too.
Yes, there's quite a bit of flashback. The series is titled that because the main character is Scottish from the Highlands, hence a Highlander. That's not like another term for the immortals, which I see people use that online occasionally, but there is not like a definitive term. They're just the immortals.
Well, the first movie was about the Christopher Lambert character,
yes,
who, in the beginning of the movie, wore a kilt.
Yes.
When he was just a normal dude.
And he meets up with Sean Connery's character, who, despite the accent, is supposed to be an ancient Egyptian who's now working for the King of Spain in Scotland for something. Don't know what.
But he sounds like Sean Connery.
Yes, he's Sean Connery, because Sean Connery doesn't ever try to hide his accent. Russian sea captain, Scottish, doesn't matter. That's a Hunt for Red October reference for those of you too young to know. Check it out, it's another good movie.
That's a really good movie.
So anyway, and then they run across the villain, the Kurgan, played by Clancy Brown.
The recently deceased Clancy Brown.
Is he?
I think it's this summer or spring.
I must have missed that.
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
Right.
That is very unfortunate.
Yeah, if you're the last thing I saw of anything was the Ballad of Buster Scruggs.
Yeah, I haven't seen that.
Well, if it was me, I wouldn't want that to be the very last movie I ever made.
Well, I mean, Orson Welles' last appearance was as Unicron in the Transformers animated movie, and he actually died after filming it before release. So,
and the Clancy Brown was only in that movie. Well, that whole movie segmented out, but Clancy Brown was in that movie for like a couple minutes. But
yeah. Some of you might know him better for his voice work, which he did a lot of. Did Lex Luthor for a lot of the DC animated stuff.
But if you saw his face, you would.
Yes.
He's instantly recognizable.
Yeah, very recognizable. He was the villain. Did a very good job. And then there are two other immortals. I think there's only those 5 throughout the entire movie. Because they just don't show... Like, the flashbacks all center around the 3 I already mentioned. The other 2, I have no idea who the actors are that played them. I think, if I'm remembering correctly, the other one that gets killed in the first 10 minutes of the movie, like basically over the intro credits during a WWF match, while it was still the WWF. Not the WWE that we know today. I think his name was Amon Fossil, and that's literally all we know about him. His name, what he looked like, because he dies real quick.
And he was immortal till he got his head lopped off.
So and at the end of the movie, it's Christopher Lambert's the only one left. So then in that movie, their interpretation of the prize was essentially that he gained the Force. He was one with all living things and could now grow old and die and have children. That's the other thing. They cannot have children. And they age until they die a violent death, and then that's how their appearance is locked in for however long they survive after that. So the series actually had like a kid that had died in like the Civil War. He was like a pipe player or something and got hit, and so now he's stuck being an immortal kid, and the show definitely showed how much that would suck.
We've seen that in vampire movies as well.
Yeah. So then Highlander 2 comes along, and the original it's in the far future, where there's an energy shield around the Earth because we totally destroyed the ozone layer, and now it rains and it's dark all the time, and kind of looks like the Aurora Borealis.
I thought you said this movie was bad.
I'm kidding. And so Christopher Lambert's character has gotten old, but then the opening of the movie explains that the immortals are actually aliens from another planet that were banished to Earth, and that really doesn't work because we know from the first movie that they're born to people on Earth, yet the other villains on the other alien planet just instantly materialize as adults whenever they come here.
That's Anunnaki, man. I mean,
And so
you've always got gods from outer space coming down, and
but anyway, there's a whole deal behind this movie, like budget overruns. The studio took everything over at one point. Like it was bad. Michael Ironside as the villain is one of the few highlights of the movie. He's great. And he just they were just like, go for it, dude. You just choose scenery like there's no tomorrow. Sean Connery gets brought back to life. Oh, spoiler from the first movie, he didn't make it.
Well, you already said that Lambert was the only one left.
Yeah, okay. He doesn't make it in this one either. Only now, instead of being killed by the villain, he's killed by a ceiling fan. In fairness, it's a really big ceiling fan.
Going pretty fast too.
Yeah. But yeah, so a later director's cut tried to reconcile this and say that they are in fact from the distant past in some far more advanced society that obviously collapsed at some point. And still, the people coming forward to the future still all kind of plays out. But Christopher Lambert, once he kills one of the guys that came there to kill him, instantly becomes back to his age from the first movie, because he just basically resets. And
recharge.
He even tells the villain that, basically how much of an idiot it was. He's like, look, I was on death's doorstep, dude. I was there. I was going to die. I was growing old. But now I'm right back to square one. All you had to do was wait, and I would have just died.
Patience.
So
patience is a virtue.
But yeah, the movie has lots of problems. Mainly the whole, hey, they're aliens from space or from the past. Either one's bad. It's best to just mysterious. Don't even try to explain it.
So I hate to spoiler this up, but is the fix to this just forgetting about movies 1, 2 through 4 or 5?
No.
Oh, okay.
No. Forget movie 5 though. like throw it in a lockbox, throw it in a volcano. Uh, movie.
If you're trying to piss off a volcano.
Well, movie 3 comes back to the present day, and there it's a matter of, oh, hey, here were these guys that were sealed in a cave, so Christopher Lambert really wasn't the last one until he kills the final guy in this one. Now he is back to the last one again. Now the third one, just taken on its own, is not a bad movie. Just if you ignore the bits about, oh, I was the last guy, but now I'm not, and that kind of stuff, and just view it as like some other adventure in the Highlander series, perfectly fine movie. Mario Van Peebles is a decent villain. You know, it introduces magic, but
the Ayatollah of rock and rolla from Heartbreak Ridge, the Clint Eastwood joint where there's Marines.
Oh, I've only seen parts of that. I haven't watched the whole movie.
Mario Van Peebles was the Ayatollah of rock and rolla.
Yeah, I thought you meant the Humongous from the Road Warrior, because that's what his little goober there introduced him as.
Really?
Yeah. Right before he lost his fingers to a feral kid with a boomerang.
Unreal.
But yeah.
Feral.
Well,
people. No.
I mean, he was. And then all the guys at his side laughed about it.
Yeah, well, there's feral people for sure.
But, so then movie 4 is like, hey, you remember all that stuff? Like, forget it. Like, we're just going to embrace the TV series in its entirety.
Hold on, before we jump on to 4, I got another question about 3.
Okay.
So, he really wasn't the last one. There was other ones locked away in a cave.
Right.
So why did at the end of... Okay, so that was... I was going to say at the end of 1, he got all their super force powers, but...
Well, right.
But they explained that in 2.
The ultimate problem here... mild spoiler for the fix. The ultimate problem is the first movie was never designed with sequels in mind.
Oh, sure.
Yeah. It's a single story. And they were like, well, I mean, we have this story. Like, who's ever going to want a sequel to this? And then it made money like, oh, well, I guess us. What do we do? So, anyway, after 3, they made the series. And the series just kind of, like, it doesn't ignore the events of 1 and 3. It obviously ignores 2 because that's in the future. But it doesn't go with Christopher Lambert's character being the last one. It's like, oh, no, there's all kinds of other immortals left. And the main character in the series is, I believe he'd be his distant cousin. He's from the same clan, but from like 150 years later or something. So Christopher Lambert does make an appearance in a couple of episodes. And that's the series where they really attempt to kind of build a background and a mythology to everything. You get to see immortals from all across time and all kinds of flashbacks, all kinds of excuses to bust out the wardrobe there on the studio lot.
And Adrian Paul is your main character.
Yeah, Adrian
there.
Paul's the main character there, and you get more into what would be the pitfalls of, hey, I've got all these friends who are not immortal. Well, what about them? Because the 2-hour movie can only explore that so much. I mean, they try, but they can really only go so far, whereas a 7-season TV series can go a lot farther. Especially when you couple that with, oh, and by the way, along with them not being immortal, there's also psychotics who decapitate people that want to attack me, and they're clearly a vulnerability, so they're going to go after them. And so you have a lot of stuff like that in the series. Overall, I thought the series was good. But it also introduced a concept called the Watchers, which are humans who know about the immortals, because somewhere along the way, some people saw some stuff, wrote some stuff down, and built a whole secret order around it, and have been basically watching it.
If it's one thing I love, it's a secret order.
Yeah.
Or a cabal.
Yes. And some of them have decided to take it upon themselves to make sure that no one can ever win the prize. And they go about this in various ways. Some of them just start killing some of the immortals, because you don't have to be an immortal to kill one. They're all quite vulnerable to bullets.
That whole thing just sounds whacked.
What's
running around killing immortals. I mean, that just...
Well, yeah. And then the others have different plans, and there's, just different groups of them, and they don't even realize they've actually been infiltrated by at least one immortal. But yeah, so the fourth movie embraces all of that and brings all that to the table. And the fourth movie is basically like the movie to cap the show, the ultimate passing of the torch, because Christopher Lambert's character gets killed.
Did the 4 come out after the series was over?
I believe so, yeah. And Adrian Paul winds up killing the villain, who's a villain for Christopher Lambert's character, also from the same clan, and but was a priest. And yeah, he got killed and came back and decided that he was going to spend eternity making Christopher Lambert's character's life a living hell. Which, that's how they conveniently try to explain the deaths of all the characters from the previous movies that we haven't seen catch up with yet, the human characters. And so Christopher Lambert's solution to the problem is, well, I can't take this guy because he spent the last few centuries literally just doing nothing but killing other immortals. Because the Watchers also kind of essentially handicapped with these people so they know where they stand in terms of rankings, basically. The two Highlander characters have killed approximately 200 some odd immortals apiece. The guy they're fighting killed well over 600.
Well, that's...
So he's basically in a whole other league. And
he's wearing a jetpack.
Yeah. So Christopher Lambert's basically like, look, I'm tired of all this, and has Adrian Paul kill him to absorb his power and everything. And so the main bad guy's like, well, guess what? Like, now I'm going to try to ruin your life because that's what else you inherited from all this. And Adrian Paul decides that he's having none of that and kills him in the end. If you happen to see the trailer for this movie, you can ignore almost everything in it. It shows the villain with all kinds of magic powers. He doesn't display a single one of them in the movie. I have no idea why they're in the trailer.
He didn't get 8 hours rest.
Yeah, I guess.
He's out spell slots.
I mean, like, at one point he literally gets, like, cut in half this way, and the two halves, like, complete to make two of him.
Oh.
Which that would have been one of those, like, well, that's a thing.
That is a thing. I would think if I'd used that if it was going to be, yeah.
Yeah. So...
I thought you were going to say he grew back together, which, immoral, but...
Well, Mario Van Peebles did that in the third movie, actually. He gets cut in half at the waist, and is on, like, a catwalk, and his legs keep going, and he, like, grabs the rails, and so just, like, flips himself around, his legs turn around and walk back up to him, and seal back together.
That's good. That's good, quick thinking.
Well, he had magic powers from a guy he killed in the beginning of the movie. Like this guy actually had, like, legit magic stuff going on, which you did see in the third movie. So anyway, the fifth one is some kind of post-apocalyptic nightmare, and there's a convergence of the planets, and the immortals are becoming mortal, and it's mainly Adrian Paul's character and another character from the show, and it's just really, really awful on every single level.
That's a shame. I love me a good post-apocalyptic movie.
Yeah, like they're dealing with cannibals, and like there's a guy at the end they're fighting who's an immortal, who, like, literally everything he says is just lyrics from the various Queen songs, but, like, he's not singing, he's just kind of saying them, and it makes no sense to be happening there because there's songs in the movie, not like anything relevant in these people's lives. It's just bad. Like, through and through, bad. Highlander, the source, avoid it at all costs.
Thunderbolts and lightning. Very, very frightening.
So, anyway, you've watched to this point, hopefully. So that's the series in a nutshell. And like I said earlier, the biggest problem is that the first movie did not lend itself to sequels the way it was laid out. Now, the younger people watching this, you're used to things like the Marvel movies, maybe the Star Wars movies, the Harry Potter movies, where the people making them have very clear ideas. Well, not the Star Wars sequels, but, the other 6. Have very clear ideas on where they want to take things, and they leave little storylines open, and they don't do stupid things like say, well, you're the last one of these guys left now. Absolutely, positively, no one left.
So that's what I was going to say. Even if they don't leave little nuggets of this is foreshadowing, they at least leave it open-ended, whereas
Right.
Christopher Lambert shut it down.
Right. See, like, kind of finishing the thought there, back in the 80s, when this movie came out, other movies didn't prepare for sequels, but you had series that lent themselves to the ability to have viable sequels. Like Lethal Weapon is basically like a really violent episode of Law and Order at the end of the day, with one guy that's 2 weeks from retirement and one guy that's crazy. So to make a sequel,
PTSD.
So to make a sequel, you just have another episode that's pretty violent, and, like, as long as the guy doesn't actually retire at the end of the movie, like, you can just keep pumping out sequels. Because the narrative lends itself to that, to an episodic format. Okay? And Highlander the series proved that, but the first movie didn't embrace that, and so that's why you wind up with the second movie and the third movie trying to explain these things away, and then the fourth movie just saying, oh, the hell with it, just embrace the series. And so, since I believe they are actually making a remake from what I understand, basically the key is, at the end, don't say he's the last one,
Which is all you had to do.
Yeah, I mean, you
cut
don't,
that out. Leave that on the cutting room floor.
Yeah, you don't even need. I mean, it'd be nice if you left threads to go elsewhere.
Sure.
Introduce other immortals that don't die on screen.
Sure.
Introduce. But also, if possible, with the runtime and everything, I would incorporate the good parts of the series, the Watchers and things like that, just from the get-go. Have it be there. But I'd maybe even go one farther. Why aren't there secret groups among the immortals? I mean, I'm sure there are some of them that really don't want to fight to the death. There could be some that have essentially what amounts to a mutual defense pact. I mean, there's story idea there to work with. I mean, you're dealing with the immortals. Like, you got a lot to work with.
And if you're going to do that, do it in sequels. Don't try to jam all of that into one movie, I don't think. Like, if there's this... you said they're doing it again... If they're just going to do one more, I wouldn't try to jam a lot of stuff into it, but leave those threads so you can explore that throughout the whole thing. I mean, you can touch on it in the first one and leave that as a thread, but don't try to work through that in the first one if there's going to be, unless that's what the story's about.
Yeah, no. I mean something like just something insignificant, a special handshake, a gesture, some kind of comment that you don't actually explain, But
someone alludes to.
Yeah, just throw it in there. You don't have to go all in, but just put some pieces in there. But on top of that, I would potentially also change the rules for the Immortals a little bit, because
go on.
Yeah, this is the other part of what I would change. As is, the way it works is, once they get within a certain proximity of each other, they like a warning of sorts goes off in their mind, saying, "Hey, there's another immortal nearby," and that's how they know.
Like the hair on the back of their neck stands up, or something very like
primal,
animal-like.
Yeah,
senses.
I mean it's depicted as a noise in the movies and the show. Because I don't.
Okay, well, sure. I mean, the hair on the back of the neck was just a
but yes,
a ringing in the ears,
like
a buzzing,
that sensation
whatever.
that you're being watched, and so you have that, and you also have the fact that, at least from the first movie, once it's time for that, they're all drawn together, and then you have the rule about they're not supposed to fight on holy ground. Which, that's, as near as I can tell, more of a gentleman's agreement than like holy writ, because a few of them are kind of like, why not, and seem to get by doing just fine doing it. So, that's more just to explain the rules. I wouldn't mess with that part. So, I would probably alter it a little bit to say that once enough of them, some number, and not a very large number, are within a certain proximity of each other, a level of bloodlust kicks in to draw them towards each other. And that would be what would kind of drive your plot of having more than just the main hero and the villain, if you wanted to go that route. So you could have like your other the other goobers that got killed in the first movie, only flesh them out just a little bit so that people will actually remember their names. Like the guy's name I remember had no lines. There's another guy that has lines. I can't remember his name. He actually liked the main character, Connor, but I can't remember his name for anything. But anyway, so I would do that, and maybe work it into the plot where the villain, like the others, is keenly aware of this fact and literally attempts to engineer something like that to force them into a conflict. And also, this would keep it so that there would be something of a detente of sorts, where like, we know X is over here, so I can't move into this half of the city unless I know it's totally clear, because I don't want to trigger this, you know. So that keeps them a little more solitary and lonely, I guess, unless they're the ones that are specifically out trying to kill everyone else.
Which really works, considering the series deal with the not getting close to mortal people thing.
Yeah. So that's a change I would consider making. I mean, obviously, a script writer's got to make that work better than me just spitballing it here. But that's something I would consider, because I know in the show the way they attempted to explain the first movie was that essentially throughout history there have been a handful of moments where several immortals got together and, well, only one of them walked away. And I think that's literally all the explanation it gets. It's been forever since I've seen the first episode of the show, which is where they explain that, if I recall correctly.
I actually caught it just randomly, maybe a year or two ago.
And so I would give it a little bit of explanation in the context of like their powers and warnings and things like that. You know, don't go scientific with it. Don't talk about midichlorians. You know, I shouldn't say that. I actually don't have a problem with midichlorians because they don't explain the Force, people. Like don't. Like the Jedi could have easily been wrong about what they are. They just know if you have them, you also have the Force. They could be like lightning bugs in your blood. Don't overthink that.
That's got to be uncomfortable.
Probably. So anyway, that's what I would do. But like I said, the main thing is just don't say this is it. You know, I mean that's literally the most basic thing you have to do to make it viable. And you can okay, go ahead.
So yes, agreed. But once you've done that, to come back in 2 and 3 and try to explain it away with complete and total garbage, I mean, I would rather they just didn't address it at all and just went on about their business. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean, like I said, that's why I like the fourth movie, because it's just like, hey, watch the show. You know, forget that.
I mean, you got to spend 2 movies trying to explain how you're still making movies.
It's actually each movie going with a different explanation,
which is even worse.
Yeah. But like, see, the anime movie doesn't fall into this trap. The anime movie uses characters that are not in the movies. It uses it's a Roman general and a Scottish guy, and literally from ancient Rome to like the year 22 something, they're just fighting it out throughout history. And so like the anime movie is definitely something they should use as inspiration, because it was very well done as far as the plotting and everything else.
You find that in a lot of cases, though.
Yeah. And especially if one thing they're considering is, let's make the first movie, but then the second movie doesn't necessarily have to be about the same people. You know, that's also like that's a way you could do things.
A Highlander universe.
Yeah. I mean, that's, you know.
All right, you make different movies, different stories, different people about the same set of rules.
Yeah. I mean, that's.
But still, you can't say this is the last dude then and do that.
Right. You can't do that unless your movie's taking place like in 6000 AD on Mars or something. In which case, you're probably never going to have to worry about the real world catching up to that, or at least not while you're alive. So, you know, like, you want to do that, knock yourself out. Just don't have it be like, oh, well, yeah, the gathering was in 2022 in New York City yesterday.
I'm going to see Highlanders in BattleTech.
Well, there is a Highlander mercenary company in BattleTech. It's called the Highlanders.
But they're not immortal.
No. The closest thing to an immortal in BattleTech, if such a thing exists, might be some of the cyborgs, but I don't know enough about them. That might actually be the total opposite of what I'm saying. The cybernetics might actually degrade their lifespan.
I just want to see Christopher Lambert and a young Sean Connery, or younger Sean Connery, and mechs.
Well, remind me sometime I'll show you the artwork of some of the pilots. Like, let's just say they definitely took serious inspiration from certain actors and musicians along the way. Yeah.
Also, so if you put Christopher Lambert as the Highlander from back in the day into a BattleTech, I mean, he's going to get if you put the air conditioner vents in the right place, he'll get a nice draft up his skirt.
Yeah. Yeah.
So if I want to take advantage of that, do I have to wear a kilt since I'm a guy, or can I just wear a nice flowy skirt that's comfortable, but I can still get a draft?
To be clear, we're talking the BattleTech question?
No, just me. Just.
Oh, I don't know. I don't know the rules of all that.
Oh, okay.
I'm given to understand a lot of it actually didn't come from Scotland. Like there's elements.
I didn't even mean that. I just meant like societal stuff.
There's elements of it as I understand it. I could be mistaken, folks. So don't get pissy with me if I get this wrong. But
no, please.
There's definitely elements of it that apparently like the English concocted completely and just sold them to the Scottish.
Oh, I'm sure. Yeah.
So. Yeah. But yeah, I don't remember exactly what that was. It might be the tartan aspect of it.
That's probably because the English was so family bloodline oriented, so that was probably it. The kilt itself is an amazing thing. I mean, a kilt isn't just like a little skirt like it is now. I mean, it was a big thing that you folded up and slung over your thing so that you could actually use it for like a shelter in the rain. I mean, it was made out of wool. It's going to get heavy, but it's going to retain its insulative power. I mean, the kilt was a thing.
Yeah.
So I'm sure the English didn't.
So I'm on this runaway thread of a topic here. I may as well go ahead and see this one through. I'm given to understand that there's a very high probability that William Wallace did not fight in a kilt, nor did his men, because he was in fact quite wealthy.
Yeah, probably. Yeah.
And
I mean, he may wore a kilt to like ceremonial things and stuff like that, but no, they probably weren't fighting. But I don't know that for a fact.
So yeah,
I love history, but I'm not a historian.
Yeah. So
I am going to have to go look that up now, though, and find that out.
So the overarching message there is Mel Gibson movies might not be where you want to get your history, folks. Just saying.
You're saying The Patriot wasn't?
Well, I mean, whenever he literally kills the bad guy at the end with patriotism, like that was a bit of a stretch, especially since that guy is based on a real person who did not die in the Revolutionary War. He actually, like, afterwards stayed in the Americas and became an American.
It was Draco's dad, too, wasn't it?
Yeah. So, yeah, and Mel Gibson's character, I think, is a combination of, like, 3 different real people, various exploits.
Like that,
yeah, I mean, it's an entertaining movie, but, like...
Mel has been known to take little...
don't be looking for
theatrical
licenses. Yeah.
What was that one he made, Apocalypto?
I never did see that.
It was tough to watch. I mean, he did it in, like, an invented ancient Aztec Mayan language or something like that.
I was going to say, I hope it wasn't Aztec. Oh, no, I'll tell you later. But yeah.
No hate from the Aztecs.
But yeah, so that's I think that's the easiest fix, and I would probably even embrace the concept of make the movies about different characters. I mean, that doesn't mean that the other characters can't show up. You might have your equivalent of the Avengers 4 movies. I don't know. Someone else can write the plot to that.
You have to change the name of it now because now it's just not about the Highlander.
Well, I don't think they will because of name recognition.
Well, right.
They'll call it like the Highlander Chronicles or something, and
right.
Magically the main character in every single one will end up being a Scottish guy that, like Christopher Lambert, doesn't sound Scottish. They actually chose him specifically for that, by the way. I think if I remember correctly, his dad was a diplomat, so he moved around a lot. That's why his voice doesn't. You can't quite pin down where it sounds like it's from.
So
And
because
it's
it's
supposed to
all
be
the
because
time
of-
because
yeah.
he's been moving around.
Yeah, that was a factor in him getting the job.
Whereas Sean Connery's character just preferred that.
Yeah. Sean Connery is Sean
I
Connery.
haven't been in Scotland long,
It,
but,
it, does,
but I love that.
it doesn't matter who he's playing. He will sound like Sean Connery.
And that is as it should be.
And
Sir Sean Connery.
Indiana Jones' dad from like Utah, Scottish. Russian sea captain, Scottish. Whatever he played in Zardoz, Scottish.
What?
Yeah.
What?
Zardoz.
What?
Some sci-fi movies. And I've only ever seen a picture of it with him wearing not a whole lot and holding a pistol on a beach. Yeah. British secret agent, Scottish. Although he's canonically was raised in Scotland, so that would at least make sense.
Well, not only that.
At least according to the Craig movies. I don't know what it was in the others, but at least according to the Craig movies, that's the case.
Well, hasn't Scotland been incorporated into?
Yeah, no, I'm saying his character easily could have been from Scotland. I'm saying in canon, I don't know if that's necessarily the case, if it's just a matter of Sean Connery just happens to sound like that. Whereas the Daniel Craig movies, since they are a different continuity, like in canon, specifically spelled out like he grew up here in wherever the mansion was that I can't think of the name of, Skyfall. Yeah, I think it's Skyfall. Yeah.
So, yeah.
Yeah.
That was in
So-
Scotland. Yeah. That was,
Yeah. So,
There's a beautiful scenery around that.
it is. I should know that. I'm a huge fan of the Bond movies, but I'll have to look that up.
There will be some videos on the Bond movies at some times. I don't know if it's going to be a franchise fix it because it might not need fixed a whole lot, but there will be definitely some delving into.
No. The only problem the Bond franchise suffered from was the Soviet Union collapsed. And we can't really fix that.
And now we know why everybody in Hollywood was communists. McCarthy was right.
But yeah, so that's an example of what I believe would be a simpler fix. So the other videos, since we're talking about movies that are a little more well known, I hate to say that's not a well known movie, but I actually don't think it is a tremendously well known movie. I mean,
Definitely the first one more than any of the others.
yeah, the first ones would definitely be more well known, and older viewers.
Like, I didn't even know there was an anime series.
Yeah, it's just the one episode. It's just the one movie. There's an animated series.
Oh, okay. Well, either way, I didn't know there was either one.
That was a kid's cartoon, and by the way, Ramirez somehow comes back to life for that one too. And that one, they developed the idea that the immortals can willingly give up their immortality.
Wait a minute. So when you were talking about Ramirez's origins,
Yeah.
I had forgotten that, but I had always thought of him as Spanish because of the clothing he wore, and his name was Ramirez.
Yeah, it's Juan Sanchez Villalobos Ramirez is the name he's going
That does
under.
not sound very ancient Egyptian.
It's not, but that's the name he's going under right now.
I see.
But he was I have no idea where this is explained. I've read this online, so I'm assuming there's a book or a comic or something that explains this, because the movie sure doesn't. He apparently was crushed by a minecart. And that's how he died the first time, and then wandered the earth. Wound up in Japan at one point. Fell in love with a woman named Shikiko, if I remember correctly. That's where he got his katana, which he passed on to Connor. Duncan just happens to have an exactly identical looking katana made by some other guy. I don't know. Don't put too much thought into it, folks. So, yeah. And that's why a guy from Scotland is using a Japanese sword, because, well, it's the height of swordsmanship.
So you got an Egyptian with a Spanish name using a Japanese sword in Scotland.
Yes.
Yes, that is how that went down.
Yes. So, for other videos of this, because this is the first of our attempts at these, we want to get your comments on this concept. For other videos, we probably won't need to have the lengthy setup, because I think people are going to recognize the plots a lot more going into them. Like if we mention, say, the Terminator franchise, I think it's more well known because there's more movies, for one thing, and they star one of the biggest people from the 80s in them, both figuratively and literally. Yeah, it's more well known. It's spanned the decades, made tons of money. Now, I will probably explain very, very briefly the movies, but, like the first one would literally be like, robot goes back in time to kill the leader of the resistance. Like, that's really all you need to know about the first movie. It's not really until you get into the others where you, like, kind of get into trouble. But that's a video for later. So anyway, hopefully we'll be able to get to the punchline, as it were, much quicker.
And I would think that sometimes the punchline is going to be a little more complicated than just don't say you're the only one left at the end of the first movie.
Yes, the idea here was to go with something simple because it's pretty straightforward. As I said, Star Wars is going to get considerably more intricate. There may be charts and graphs.
There may be hate mail.
Well, there's going to be hate mail just because I mentioned Star Wars. There's going to be hate mail from the people that don't think the sequel series is a dumpster fire. They're going to be like, oh, you just don't appreciate the vision of J.J. Abrams / Rian Johnson / J.J. Abrams again.
By the way, we welcome the hate mail as well.
Yeah, let's see it.
Bring it.
And for the record, I don't appreciate the vision of J.J. Abrams and Rian Johnson for those movies. To be clear, I actually liked several of Rian Johnson's other movies, and I think he could make a good Star Wars movie. He just is not the right guy to bring in for the middle movie of a trilogy that kind of has to go certain directions. Send him off to the other side of the galaxy to let him do his thing. I will go watch that, even after The Last Jedi, which was god-awful. I will still go watch that movie. Because Knives Out, that was funny. Looper, little sketchy on the time travel. I think he tried to have a couple different methods of being employed at the same time that don't work together, but it was good.
For future reference, I'm out on all time travel movies. I've never watched one that I was happy with at the end of it, and I'm just not going to do it anymore.
You ever watched 12 Monkeys?
Okay, there was one I liked. Okay.
That's right.
I may have exaggerated.
That's right, folks. That's the one movie that I think actually works time travel wise. I think. I got to sit down and take notes sometime, but it all holds up here in my memory. So,
I don't have a photographic memory like you. Your near photographic memory, so I don't even. But I do specifically remember not leaving that thinking, that's just another time travel movie that they jacked up.
Yeah, they are easy to mess up. So anyway, that's just kind of how the format's going to go, and it won't necessarily be me every time. If Brad sees a movie he thinks we can fix up, or Chad if he's here, and we'll bounce the ideas around. There'll hopefully be more of an idea than just don't do this.
This one thing would fix everything.
Yeah. Like I said, I was shooting for something simple here because this is kind of like a proof of concept. So, anyway, would appreciate your comments. If you like what you saw, hit the like button, subscribe, share it around, link this thing everywhere.
Feedback about this video, feedback about my bald head, feedback about whatever you want to feedback. We'll read it, we'll consider it, we'll throw it back at you.
You run into Christopher Lambert on the street somehow, show him this video.
Yeah. And tell him we like the first movie a lot.
Yeah, no offense against anyone in the movies. Even the people in that last one.
I don't know if 2 was so... He had to read that script beforehand, right?
Well, that's actually kind of questionable now that you mention that, because he was legally blind by that point. He almost killed Michael Ironside in one of their sword fights. So
there's the takeaway from this video. If you can't read the script, have somebody read it to you.
Yeah,
that'd be a shame. What year was this? Do you think?
That would be like 90, 91, somewhere in there.
Oh, okay, that's great. So then,
we'd still have scanners.
And
Michael Ironside.
And Michael Ironside's portrayal of the military genius that he was in Starship Troopers.
I think that's actually a couple years later. Because I think that's like 93 or 94.
Yeah, that's what I mean. We still get it. Because he didn't...
Oh, no.
The blind Lambert didn't lock Ironside's head off.
Yeah, I thought you were saying if he would have.
No, we don't want him to. We wouldn't have had that if...
Yeah, that movie was out the same year as I want to say Titanic, something like that. Because I don't think it. No, it wasn't Titanic. Because it was actually up. It was nominated for Academy Award for effects, and I thought it got screwed. You know, like it shouldn't have won any other Academy Awards ever. Maybe sound editing or something.
I like that movie. I thought the movie could have been better. We might do that franchise one time too. But
well, that's something else I've kind of considered as like a kind of talking about like the differences in adaptations, like source material. I don't know. I haven't thought of a witty name yet. It's work in progress. But yeah, because I like the movie, but I also like the book.
Yeah, right. So that's what I mean.
Yeah,
the adaptation could have been better. That's what I was getting at.
Yeah.
But I liked the movie. Neil Patrick Harris played his character very well. Yeah. Love me some Ironside.
Yep. So, yep, folks, that's about all we got on this one. So, you know, like I said, it's YouTube. Do all the things. We always appreciate it. But otherwise, we will catch you folks next time.
Bye-bye.